Fantastic. Now we hope tech goes fine. All right, let me get all my stuff in order. No one's on camera. Marissa, can you see my screen? Are we good?
Yes, you are perfect.
All right. I am so excited today because what you're going to learn about me in a second is today's presentation is bridging my worlds together. And it's really a culmination of everything that I've been through in corporate to entrepreneurship and now as a multifaceted entrepreneur. So real quick, high level, hello, my name is Lexie. I am a PR and business coach. I have 2 podcasts and 3 companies. The first company, briefly, is hybrid. It's called the PR Bar Inc. and the PR Bar Agency. If you've ever been interested in learning more about PR, I direct you towards the PR Bar Inc. It's all about education and teaching people what PR is. And then the PR Bar Agency is an agency where we do the PR for you. My other world is I have a community myself. It's called Ready, Set, Coach. It's an online community. It's completely free. It's built for anyone looking to learn more or explore or build a coaching business, whether that be as a side hustle, a revenue stream, or full-time. Quick one last shout out slide because this is a learning thing today. If you want to learn, I have 2 educational based podcasts in 2 different lanes. I have Pitchin' and Sippin', again, all about PR. And then I have the Ready, Set, Coach podcast. So if these are areas you're looking to learn in, especially the coaching one, since that is in line with what we're learning today, here is where you can continue your learning beyond today. Okay, so thank you for sharing with me whom you guys are in the chat. Continue if you're just joining, drop in the chat who you are, where you're calling in from, what you do. It's just going to help me speak specifically to you a lot better. What I did want to quickly share is the context of where I'm coming from today. So this is like an abbreviated LinkedIn, right? So this is my quote unquote title journey through corporate into entrepreneurship. So I began entry level as an account coordinator in PR firms, became a senior account director, recruited to go in-house, became an in-house director of marketing and PR. Next company, rose in the ranks, became a VP, oversaw multiple departments. I then transitioned to become a solopreneur and coach. I then launched multiple businesses, and here we are today. I have a small but mighty team of 4, and I'm hiring a 5th right now. And I share this because no matter what part of my journey or what part of my resume you focus on, what we're learning today is incredibly relevant and helped me on this journey. So hopefully, no matter who you are, I saw we have managers, I saw we have entrepreneurs, we have coaches, we have a whole bunch of people in this room. This is relevant to what you do. So, as I like to say, enough about me. It's time to level up. Okay, so WTH, we'll censor it. What the heck is a coaching mindset? So a coaching mindset involves adopting attitudes and behaviors that help individuals or teams achieve their potentials and goals, emphasizing qualities like empathy, active listening, and guidance over just giving direct solution. So here's another way to think about it. Fun fact, grew up playing year-round basketball. My in-season coaches, so the ones like in high school who were part of the high school team, sucked. They were terrible, and we'll go into more why. Where my off-season coach, because I played year-round, she was awesome. And here is why. So my high school coaches took to screaming at us, belittling us. They forced us to run plays that really did not suit our skill sets. And they often pitted us against each other on the team rather than promoting teamwork, which for a bunch of high school girls led to a bunch of tears and many of my teammates quitting over the years. My off-season coach, on the other hand, worked with each of us players individually to improve upon our unique weaknesses and learn to leverage them as strengths and as our competitive advantage. She was tough, but she was empathetic. And if we didn't understand something, she took the time to understand why or what the disconnect was so she could help us course correct. Ultimately, I felt empowered and I played like a freaking rock star on the off season. And then I went to the high school where everyone was watching in the bleachers, and I found myself playing afraid and timid because of my coaches. Okay, so let's talk about a coach's job. A phrase I like to use a lot when I'm a coach and I'm teaching other coaches is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. Meaning, a coach's job is to empower their clients to be self-sufficient. They should guide and instill confidence. But that sometimes is where it ends. And that's where we need to be really clear. You're going to hear sometimes confusion between what is coaching versus consulting. There's the line, right? A consultant oftentimes is going to come on and it's going to make you drink the water or drink the water for you. The coach is going to lead you there. So yelling or getting fed up and just doing it yourself or not creating an environment that encourages self-growth are all counterproductive to the true job of a coach. Why should we care, or why should we focus on building a coaching mindset? Well, the through line to my basketball example that I'm sharing is when you can adapt and embody a true coaching mindset, your team players will prove far more successful for it. And when your team is winning, you are seen as a better coach. So transferably, this approach can be beneficial for leaders, mentors, managers. Again, I saw we have some other coaches, up and coming coaches in the room. Anyone in a position to empower others as it promotes trust, growth, and productive feedback. Here are 5 benefits that lead us towards prioritizing this as a skill set. So number 1, when you are able to adapt this, and I just want to preview, I'm going to give you a ton of skills and actionable things today to implement, but I want you to buy in first. So number 1, buy-in, it helps you empower your team. We empower your team to have the confidence to excel as individuals and as a team. It helps build trust, and trust fosters safety and a productive environment. That is an area that Marissa is a total expert in. So if you guys are looking for anything regarding culture, I point you back towards her and Reloveution. It leads to growth. So the better the coach, the more your team will grow and improve. When this happens, all parties win. So when your team is winning, you win and your company wins. This can lead to impact and income. So you can impact lives if you're a good coach. And also when you're good at your job, you can increase your income. So if you're motivated by both, because we all got bills to pay, right? It hits on both sides. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background stuff. Now the rest of today's, we're really going to dive into the how. How do we build a coaching mindset? So step 1, and this is a fun one or a challenging one, is we have to become super self-aware. There are 4 areas I encourage you to brainstorm on or think on. If this is something you haven't done before, this is kind of my challenge for you to take home as homework outside of today, to take a spreadsheet, create 4 categories and brainstorm on these. So the first is personal bias. We want to understand what unconscious preferences, opinions, or prejudices we might have. Now you can do this through honest self-reflection. You can phone a friend, you can ask colleagues, mentors, other coaches. We can educate ourselves. There's also a ton of online tools that can help spot these for us. So there's a lot of resources to help us really objectively understand where we have personal bias. What might happen as you uncover your personal biases is you might come across emotional triggers that can also shape a form of a bias. So for example, maybe a previous past boss's management style triggers you. I know this is very true for me. Or perhaps certain language does, right? So triggers can also, that's category 2, play into category 3, our ego, which is a very fun one and can be very challenging to let go. What we want to do is practice recognizing when it's our ego taking effect. And this is really critical in self-awareness. An example here is, notice if you see yourself getting defensive. This is easier said than done, of course. And I think it's easier said than done depending on certain environments. For me, it's easier to do this at work. It's a lot harder to do this at home with my husband. So when you're getting defensive, this is a good time to pause and ask yourself why. Why is that your gut reaction? Is it because someone is disagreeing with you or your ego, or have you been triggered? Or is there a little bit of both? Usually there's a reason, right? And then finally, that last category is we want to think through limitations. So just as it's important to know your strengths as a leader, you want to know where your limitations exist. So where does your experience or knowledge end? And kudos to Marissa, because she put together this year-long series inviting experts to speak on topics where, to be honest, she doesn't give herself enough credit. She could probably speak to this, but this is a category where she's saying, hey, there are other people who know certain topics better than me. So it's a great example of self-awareness. So again, feel free to, I know this is being recorded, but take pictures of any of these slides. Your take-home homework is to do a bit of journaling on these 4 categories so you can start to develop self-awareness as it relates to, okay, and Reloveution has a trigger assessment tool. Freaking phenomenal. There you go. So take that, because this is really, really key if you actually want to commit to building this mindset. Once you start to build self-awareness, the next component is layering on active listening. So active listening, by definition, is paying close attention to what the other person is saying and avoiding interrupting or formulating your response while speaking. Now, in a world full of distractions and leading lives of never-ending to-do lists, this is really, really easy to mess up. I have a little soapbox on this topic because I personally feel that active listening is one of the most important and lucrative skill sets someone can have, because active listening can lead to impact, more effective problem solving, help you make more money. It's actually a huge secret to sales. It can lead to better relationships. It can help you land jobs. It can help you make friends, and ultimately help you get what you want. So like big skill in life here. Because when we practice active listening, we're actually hearing someone. And when we hear someone, it's far easier to understand what they're saying and respond directly and productively. So let's go over some tips to get better here. Again, this is something that sounds so simple, but it's actually, people get this wrong quite a lot. If you feel like you already know this, or this is something you've heard, great. Let these be reminders today, and let's do a little bit of self-checking. And my challenge for you, I hope everyone's listening, is I want you to take the remainder of this presentation to practice active listening, okay? That means, yes, continue eating or what have you, but in the spirit of learning, my challenge for you is to active listen for the rest of this presentation. And here are some tips to help you do that. Number 1, turn off distractions. Silence notifications, close your other browsers. If you're me, close your 5,000 tabs you have open. If you have a Mac, you can turn on Do Not Disturb. Place your phone upside down, place it on the ground, right? Get distractions away. 2, make the intent. So make it a practice to remind yourself to actively listen. Something that I like to do, I have 3 monitors, and when I need to be reminded of something daily, like to make tangible reminders, so I place sticky notes. So if active listening is something maybe that isn't your forte or it's something you're working on, make a sticky note that reminds you to set the intent daily. Number 3, take notes. This helps us ensure retention, science. Repeat it back. So repeat back key things you hear to ensure you're understanding correctly. And 5, ask questions when appropriate, but don't interrupt. And we're going to dive more into questions shortly, because this can be a phenomenal tool set to have. Okay, now it's also worth noting common barriers, listening barriers to watch out for. And you're going to start to see how all of these tie exactly into the steps and self-awareness skills we're working to develop. Because without them, this is what can happen. Prejudice or bias, right, which we practice outlining self-awareness, can prevent us from truly hearing what someone is saying. Same with distractions or if we find ourselves being impatient. Defensiveness can also shut us down, which is often or generally caused by a trigger or ego. Also, I'm like, I want to take your trigger assessment test, Marissa. I didn't know you had that. That's such a cool tool. Another one is information overload. So when someone feels overwhelmed, they can shut down and stop listening and try to feel less overwhelmed, right? So just something to be mindful of when we talk about our approach in life, when we talk about managing, or we talk about really just any form of communication, communicating in a way that we're meeting people where they're at. So ultimately, the more self-aware we become, the more we listen, the more we can practice step 3, which is building empathy. And ultimately, the more we become open to hearing, truly hearing others' perspectives, we can enhance our ability to actually become capable of seeing their point of view, right? We can actually do that same, what's the saying, like walking in their shoes. I think I just butchered that, but I think you guys know what I'm getting at. Both of these are critical skill sets to have when we talk about building a coaching mindset. So this is my first attempt at seeing if anyone is going to engage in the chat. So I'm curious, does anyone here from their former manager training or just know in life, can anyone tell me why practicing empathy is important in a position of leadership, or what are the benefits that can come? This is like a test. I'm curious if we have an interactive audience today. So again, the question is, can anyone tell me why it might be important to practice empathy, or what can happen when we do?
You build better relationships or better rapport with people.
Absolutely. Yep. And then we have, it models supportive workplace behaviors for others. People feel seen and heard. When I feel heard, I am more engaged. Yep, these are great. Thanks, guys, for engaging. I appreciate it. So you can establish trust and respect. You can enhance your effective communication. You can successfully motivate employees. Yes, you can lead to a stronger team. You can have long-term impact on personal and professional development. There are so many benefits. So hopefully you guys believe and understand or are buying into that this is really, really key. So when we went through tips on how to active listen, number 5 was asking questions. So I wanted to give you guys a tool belt to keep in your arsenal. So these are powerful types of coaching questions that you can use to help build step 3, which is empathy. So we're going to go through these quickly. Okay. So first and foremost, we have open-ended questions. So these prompt thought and generally can't be answered with a yes or no. So an example here is, what are your long-term goals, right? That's an example of an open-ended question. Then we want to practice listening to their answer. Then we have clarifying questions. These help you ensure you're truly understanding what is being said. So an example here is, what specifically do you mean by, or am I hearing this correctly? Do you mean blah, 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 blah. Then we have reflective questions. These encourage self-reflection and introspection. So how do you feel about the situation, right? Giving them a second to pause and reflect. We have action-oriented questions. These focus on the person identifying tangible steps towards a goal. So rather than you just telling them what to do, they have to reflect and come up with the action themselves. So simple question here, what is your next step? What is your next step here if that's your goal, right? Then we have hypothetical. These encourage others to consider alternative scenarios or solutions. So what would you do if you had unlimited resources? Is an example here. And then we have Socratic questions modeled after the Socratic method, which encourage critical thinking and can challenge assumptions and beliefs. So I am not going to read this slide, but here's an invitation to take a picture. I'm going to give like full transparency. Mr. ChatGPT helped me come up with 5 questions for each of these categories. These are great questions to just have in your tool belt. So I'll just pause for a second. Again, feel free to screenshot, take a picture. These are for you guys. Okay, going to keep going on. The really cool thing about the questions is that they actually can be peppered in through each phase of the key skill set development and delivery, right? So we can actually even ask these questions of ourselves. They can help us discover or become more self-aware. They're really great tools to ensure we're active listening, and both of these then help us build and practice empathy. All really, really important steps in building a coaching mindset. Now, all of this takes practice. And when you do anything new or you work to develop a new skill, you can expect there to be wins, losses, flops, ups and downs, and everything in between. For me, I'll just be fully transparent, coming off of a managerial roles and leading people and teams to becoming a coach, my first couple of years of coaching, and I still have my moments, my instinct is to just want to tell people the answer when really it's so much more powerful if you can ask questions that help them self-discover that answer. So because this takes practice, and because inevitably we're human and we're going to have moments of ups and downs, parallel to building a coaching mindset, it's really, really important to develop what we call a growth mindset. So for my people who are active in the chat, does anyone know what a growth mindset is, or what it is when we say growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? Feel free to propagate in the chat. I'll give you 5 seconds and then I'll give you the answer. I'm just curious if this is a term that people are familiar with. Being receptive to change. I'm going to guess openness to learning and change. Yeah. Practice makes perfect. Love this. Okay. So a fixed mindset is the belief that abilities are fixed, which can lead to the avoidance of challenges and fear of failure. A growth mindset, like people said in the chat, sees abilities as developable through effort and learning, encouraging a love for challenges and a view of failure as a stepping stone for improvement. For me, I find it really, really powerful to pay attention to the language I use, both when I'm speaking to others and when I'm talking to myself. And I know that can be hard to kind of call out what we're talking to ourselves. And this can be in my brain talking to myself, or it can be out loud, because simple word tweaks can make a huge difference. So here are some examples of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. So someone with a fixed mindset might say, I'm not good at this. When we practice a growth mindset, that can become, but I can get good at this with effort and practice. Fixed mindset, this is too hard. Growth mindset, everything is hard before it's easy, right? We're leaving the door more open. Fixed, I made a mistake. Growth, mistakes help me learn. Fixed, they're smarter than me. Growth, I can get smarter by learning more. Big one or fixed is I can't do this. Growth, I'm still learning and can keep trying. Fixed, I give up. Growth, I'm on the right track. So these are essentially the same, taking the same thought, but just changing how we word them and how we phrase them. And again, the development of a growth mindset, like anything in the mindset category, takes practice. So give yourself grace here, have patience with yourself, and make an intent to practice this daily. Something else to be mindful of when coaching or managing is your delivery. So if you remember my basketball example, this is a really prime example of how delivery correlates to effectiveness. So my high school coaches chose to yell and belittle, and even if they were technically right, it didn't land with me or our team because of their delivery. So how can we deliver more productively? By practicing empathetic and constructive communication. So here are a few more tips beyond becoming self-aware and active listening. So use I statements. which emphasize your personal experience than making accusations. So for example, you can say, I feel frustrated when, instead of saying, this is frustrating, like it's a fact, or you always make me mad when, right? Try making it become more of an opinion or a feeling rather than a fact. Also, try to avoid placing direct blame. A good basketball coach, for example, doesn't tell the team that you guys lost, you suck, which is again what my coaches did. I don't think they're in this room. That would be super awkward. They are generally, what a good coach does is good coach does is partake in the responsibility, saying, we will do better next time, because the coach is a part of the team and they accept that role. Also be mindful of your tone. So a good example of tone in the English language, because that's the only language I fluently know, so I'm sure there's inflections in other languages. When I say sure versus sure, right? There's a different meaning there. Tone is a very big one. It can also be really hard to be truly objective to your own tone. So be receptive to feedback here, because it's hard for us when we know our intent to truly understand if we're using the right tone. Acknowledge the other person's feelings and emotions, even if you don't agree with their viewpoint. Make them feel validated or heard in some extent. So a phrase like, I can see that you're upset, can go a really long way. Adapt your communication style. So spoiler alert, we all know everyone is different. So some people might be more receptive or more triggered by different forms of managing or leading, different language, etc. So be mindful and always look for areas or ways that you can improve. How a good example here, if anyone here is in any sort of partnership beyond work, how I communicate at work is not the same as when I go home. It doesn't work. I have to change how I communicate. I have to change my style a bit because the people are different, the environment's different. So it's just, once again, something to be mindful of in a workplace. Beyond delivery, maintaining trust is very important in being an effective coach. So from a mindset perspective, get in the habit of paying mind to your words and your promises and follow through. So if you say you're going to do something, do it. I know that sounds simple, but it can be really easy just to get into a lip service routine when there's so much on our plates. If you're in a manager review, or if you're with a client and you say a statement that you're going to do something, write it down so you don't forget and do it. Or if you don't, and there's a reason why, address it, right? Maintaining trust when we talk about that coaching relationship is hugely important. Seek feedback, because no one knows everything and we're all human. Thus, we can't be perfect. It's just impossible. So in the spirit of coaching and self-development, make it a practice yourself to continuously seek feedback. Regularly reflect on your own coaching experiences and seek feedback from those you manage or interact with. So continuous improvement, always learning, is essential in building an effective coaching mindset. In the coaching profession, there's a joke that coaches always have a coach. So coaches are always hiring coaches, because true coaches, when they're good at coaching, I know there's coaches in this room, great, you're great coaches because you're continuing to learn. In the spirit of a coaching mindset, learning is really, really key. Also, celebrate achievements. So when a team wins the Super Bowl and all the players and the coach celebrates, right? They like dump the Gatorade, they say we're going to Disneyland. This is hugely important part of life. It's something I practice regularly. Sometimes I need reminders of this. So accountability buddies can be really important. But acknowledge your employees, acknowledge your team, and acknowledge yourself. Take moments to celebrate a job well done. This can be through a simple word of affirmation, or it can be more grand, like giving a raise, parties, gift cards. Marissa's the expert here, what actually probably works the best. But my point being, in theory, take time to celebrate milestones, both big and small. For someone, the fact that maybe they showed up after having a really hard 3 days is a huge win because they were mentally exhausted, where someone crushing their Q4 goals is a big win. Both are important and worth acknowledging. Okay, so I'm excited because this is kind of my little, usually the end of a presentation, someone will summarize all the key learnings, but we're going to mix it up a little today and do a recap quiz, because if you were listening in this presentation, I challenged you to practice active listening, and I gave you tools to do such. So this isn't a call out. This is me, but it is, but it isn't, but it is. But I want to get a little bit active in the chat to see if we really were practicing our active listening. So in the chat, I'll give like every question like 7 seconds so this doesn't drag on. What is a coach's job? And this is not to be verbatim, but what is a coach's job? Who heard this today? A coach listens attentively and empathetically. Absolutely. So my quick answer is a coach's job is to empower someone to do it themselves. Yep, there you go. Great. Prompts a person to reflect. Yep. Yes. Win, win, win. Next question. Why or what is a benefit? Can someone name a benefit to building a coaching mindset? What can happen? We went over a bunch, but can anyone drop one thing that can happen when this becomes a skill you really focus on? More engaged employees. Absolutely. Yep. Winner, winner. We'll move on. What are the 3 steps to building a coaching mindset? We can even start with, what is step 1? Which I think step 1 is the hardest. Yes, this is great. You guys are making me very happy. Yep, self-awareness. Step 2 is active listen. And step 3 is building and practicing empathy. So what is one tool or tip that you can do to help practice active listening? Putting the phone down. Stop notifications, close my billions of tabs. Yes. Powerful questions, repeat it back, turn off distractions, turn off. Yes, 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 yes. Fantastic. And then what other mindset is important to focus on and build alongside coaching? We talked growth. Yes. Like A+, and then I put this in here, but I'm realizing it's literally on my screen name. This was kind of a joke, but what's my name? We know it's Lexie. Okay. So that brings me to the end of today's presentation. Marissa, I have no idea if I'm leading this back to you or I'm just asking for questions. Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Lexie. I know that I took a lot away from that, and I'm sure that other people did as well. So I'm going to stop recording. So thank you if you're watching this back. Tune in live for future question and answer sessions. And thank you for tuning in.